Welcome everybody to our Nomasis webinar. My name is Berg and I'm pleased to introduce to you Axel Chuk. He will be presenting today. Today's webinar is about Windows Autopilot. The session lasts about 30 minutes. Please notice that during the presentation your microphones will be set to mute. You may post questions during the session through the chat function or ask them at the end of the presentation. The questions will then be answered by Axel. Now I'd like to hand over to Axel. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you, Berg, for your nice introduction. As you already told, my name is Axel Chuk. I'm mobile security engineer at Nomasis AG. And we are talking about user-driven device registration with Microsoft Windows Autopilot via VPN. So first of all, I would like to give you a brief overview how we will unpack this cryptic sounding topic. Therefore, we start with our agenda. A few of you might already have had the pleasure to get to know Windows Autopilot, either from our webinar last year or because you already discussed or even implemented Windows Autopilot in your company. So first of all, I will briefly summarize what Windows Autopilot is and the benefits this technology brings us. After that, we will dig through this solution to find out what was not considered yet. Therefore, we have a quick review of the past, the present, and an outlook for the future. So this allows us to summarize today's challenge for the IT. After that, we will slowly decrypt and unwrap user-driven hybrid Azure AD join via VPN and what it is about. We will, of course, summarize its advantages, and in the end, I will show you how to configure this by not diving too far into detail, but I also want our hands getting a bit dirty with a small walkthrough within Microsoft Intune. I will also show you a few possible pitfalls you may encounter, and last but not least, you are, as always, you have the opportunity to ask questions. So let's get it started. First of all, what is Windows Autopilot? So Windows Autopilot is a cloud-based deployment method. Some of you might know Apple Device Enrollment or Android Zero Touch already. So Windows Autopilot is basically Microsoft's solution to provide a seamless and easy deployment for Microsoft devices. So you can order a device from a device vendor. This device is pre-registered in the Autopilot cloud. The end user unboxes the device, plugs it in, and turns it on. After granting internet access and authenticating himself with the organization account, the device joins the organization, enrolls in Intune, and is configured as defined. So all in all, Windows Autopilot simplifies all aspects of the Windows device life cycle for both IT and end users, from initial deployment to the end of the life cycle. So the benefits of Windows Autopilot, let's go through this together. First of all, Windows Autopilot simplifies the device life cycle, as already told. We have an awesome out-of-the-box experience for the end user. The user rips off the wrapping paper of this surface, plugs it in a brand new device, and can immediately start with his work. You as the IT do not have to re-image devices if the employee leaves the company and you want to hand over the surface to another employee. So the new employee just receives the new settings when he logs in. You can apply various settings and policies, install apps, and even change the Windows 10 edition, for example, from Windows 10 Pro to Windows 10 Enterprise. And all of this is pretty easy and, most important, automated. So now let's have a look on what was not considered yet. In the past, we had our corporate PC waiting on the employee's desk, already plugged in and connected to the corporate network. On the other hand, we had our on-premise Active Directory. The PC joined the domain and received the GPOs, etc., over the corporate network. Honestly, this is on an abstract level, but I think you get the idea. It was basically pretty simple setup. So how about the present? Indeed, also very high level, but our company, your company, moved one step towards the cloud. We set up Azure Active Directory, and our users' devices are exposed to Azure Active Directory via Azure AD Connect. Our corporate PC is again waiting on the desk for the new employee, already plugged in and connected to the corporate network. After joining the on-premise Active Directory, our corporate PC received Azure Active Directory tenant info in addition to the GPOs. So now that is a time when it can become lagging. Azure AD Connect has to synchronize the new PC into Azure Active Directory first to complete the registration process. This can take up to 30 minutes. In the meantime, the device tries to register with Azure AD repeatedly. You will see in your event log automatic registration failed and so on. All in all, it's not very seamless, not very intuitive. So Windows Autopilot provides a solution for this scenario. You will have, what you will face in the future, or what you already might face, is this new layer of complexity which is coming. There's a well-known use case for everybody, especially in today's pandemic times. Employees are not allowed to come to the office. IT admins have to take care of the social distance while setting up the corporate PC of the new employee. And even besides the pandemic, you may have users who should have access to your network who sits in India or Australia, and you do not want to stress them with a weird VPN Citrix receiver setup. So also for that, you can order a device, let it be shipped to, for example, Australia to the user. The user rips off the wrapping paper, plugs it in, authenticates himself, and faces the same experience if he would sit in the office in Zurich. So even if he's not in the corporate network. So let's just summarize the challenge shortly. The device must have access to the Active Directory domain controller to join it, and must therefore be connected to the organization network. So how can the user register his device anytime and especially from anywhere? So let's decrypt user-driven hybrid Azure AD join via VPN. In the last webinar, we already covered Azure AD join with Windows Autopilot. My dearest colleague, Philip Fani, told you something about this. So we do not need to go through every step here in detail. Basically, the device is pre-registered in Windows Autopilot deployment service. The Intune enrollment takes place and the device receives its configuration. The crack point is the red circle 7. The device should join the domain even though it sits in Australia. So the topic already spoilers the solution. Of course, we are talking about VPN. Now let's demystify the steps which are needed for this. So first of all, the device identifies itself to the Autopilot service. This is basically done with a hardware hash, an ID hash, which is provided before. It receives its Autopilot profile details. So for example, perform an AD join. The user uses his Azure AD user credentials to complete the MDM or the Intune MDM enrollment. So in this step, the device gets also told that it wants to or should perform an offline domain join. So short ODG for the future. Intune also delivers a VPN profile to the device. Intune determines the domain join profile. That's a configuration profile, which says, please join this AD domain, this organizational unit, etc. This offline domain join request is generated and picked up by an ODG connector. We will come to this later. So basically what Intune does, it generates this request. So this request is held in the cloud, and you have an on-premise ODG connector installed, which pulls this request repeatedly so that the computer object can be created in the on-premise Active Directory. An Active Directory computer object is created, and a so-called ODG blob is uploaded to Intune and further delivered to the device. And on the next MDM sync, so you have to imagine the device is already enrolled in Intune. On the next MDM sync, which takes place, the device receives this confirmation, reboots, and establishes the VPN to the corporate network. So before the computer object is not generated in the on-premise Active Directory, it makes no sense that the device already connects to this on-premise Active Directory, sorry. So, and the user is finally able to sign in with his Active Directory, so on-premise Active Directory credentials. These are really the points which differs from the so-called normal Autopilot setup. How do we configure this? First of all, we set up a Windows 10 automatic enrollment within our Intune console. After that, we have to install the Intune connector. You remember this ODG blob I told you? This has to be pulled from an Intune connector. This is a software which you can download from your Azure Active Directory. We will see this later. Install it on a local server in your environment. We create a Windows Autopilot deployment profile. For those of you who are already familiar with Apple device enrollment, we can customize it a bit. So this is like an enrollment profile or deployment profile is the Windows vocabulary for this. The fourth step implies a domain join profile. So what I already told, so please join this domain, this organizational unit. And the last step takes care of the VPN profile, so that our Australian coworker or the home office coworker is able to finish the domain join, even though he's not on site or not connected to the corporate network yet. So now I want to show you this in the endpoint manager of Intune. Getting our hands a bit dirty, so you just get an imagination what has to be done on the Intune. So I hope this is working. So you have your endpoint manager console here. This is renamed, so basically the Intune console, which most of you may already know. So you click on the platform which it is all about. So we are talking about Windows 10 devices, Windows devices. And first of all, we go here to the Windows enrollment. And as you have seen in the screenshot, we create this automatic enrollment here. So there are much of stuff, MDM, discovery URL, etc. So we leave it like that. After that, if the automatic enrollment is created, you install this Intune connector for Active Directory, which you can see here at the bottom of the page. So we do not have one yet. You would download the on-premise Intune connector. So it's just ODG, offline domain join connector bootstrapper exe. Install it on your Windows Server machine. So, and then this will appear here. So as soon as this is set up, you create this deployment profile. Other device vendor also call it enrollment profile. You can name it whatever it is, cover or targets, etc. So this is basically the enrollment profile, what it should do: hybrid Azure AD join, skip connectivity check, user-driven, etc. We won't go into detail here for now. So this is the profile which is sent to the device, so it knows how to behave in the very first startup. So after that, two things are missing. So we have a device which enrolls, joins the Azure AD, of course, because it has to register here or authenticate here, but we also want to have it registered on the on-premise Active Directory. Therefore, we would create a configuration profile. You have a Windows 10 or later, domain join, create. We name it very creative, test. Computer name prefix, domain name, organizational unit. You can assign it to various group afterwards, of course, so the usual Azure AD configuration stuff. Okay, and last but not least, of course, we need the VPN profile. So if you already have a VPN in place, good. If not, you just create a VPN like you would for other use cases, and you can take whatever you want here. So NetMotion or whatever, a VPN. So, and that's it from Intune. That's it from Intune side. So I would very likely to switch back to my presentation. Okay. So what are the advantages? Let's just quickly summarize them. You already know all of them. These are the basic Windows Autopilot benefits. But we have one very important benefit. Our user can domain join the device from anywhere because of the VPN profile. So, to be honest, every solution has its pitfalls. We have mainly two we should consider and talk about. First of all, before you attempt a hybrid Azure AD join using VPN, confirm that a user-driven hybrid Azure AD join without VPN can be performed on the organization's network. So plug it in the organization's network, try to join in a hybrid Azure AD environment. And second, validate that the VPN configuration can be deployed with Intune to an existing device that has already been hybrid Azure Active Directory joined. So these are those both pitfalls you should consider. And if, I'm sorry, and if both work independently of each other, both may also work in combination. So, thank you very much for your attention. That's it for now. I will check the teams if any question came up. If you have any question, otherwise, Berg, I would kindly ask you to unmute the user if you are able to. So if one wants to ask me a question directly. And
thank you very much, Axel, for giving us an overview about this really interesting topic. I did not receive any questions so far through the chats.
Okay.
So If anybody wants to unmute himself or herself, please move on. So at this point, we will end this webinar. If you have any future questions on this topic, please contact us at any time. Thank you all for joining and have a nice day.
Yep. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.